Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. Norbert's has 15% off handstand kick-up mats. Go to norberts.com for a 10% discount on anything with the code GymCastic. Norbert's is also giving away a $50 Norbert's gift card that can be used on anything in their online store, no minimum. Just follow Norbert's Athletic on Instagram and comment on the giveaway post. Today, an interview about USA Gymnastics culture, processes, and changes, and sabotage at an international meet with 3 coaches of world champions. Today is June 11th, 2024, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and before we get into the meat of this interview, I have some updates for you. We are having a live show in Minneapolis right after the Paris Olympic team is named at Olympic trials. We'll debrief as a family, get all of our feelings out. Is it the right team? This isn't a deep dive guest, unveils all of their secrets of their heart, but you never know who's going to show up to the live show and give their feelings about the team. But anyway, it's a debrief about the team right after they're named. And in-person tickets are sold out, but you can still get virtual tickets at GymCastic.com. You can get on the wait list if you try to buy an in-person ticket. There's a wait list on Eventbrite, but no promises that any of those will become available. We are also creating a fantasy league for Olympic trials, so that's coming soon. Keep your eye out for when that is ready to go. If you need merch for watch parties, for trials, or the Olympics, now is the time to order your Simone freaking Biles banner or shirt or hats. We have hats now, so check that out at gymcast.com. And if you need to find your people, you can do that in the forum. People are finding people to hang out with at trials. Some people are organizing a meetup at the Olympic Games in Paris. Some people are organizing safety walks or neighborhood excursions for Pride in Minneapolis at trials. So check it out in the forum at gymcastic.com. All right, so this interview, the way it came about is as a journalist who covered every single aspect of the downfall of the old USA Gymnastics regime because of the largest sexual abuse scandal in sports history, I'm often asked, what's the culture like now? Has it changed? What's the difference? And I, of course, have informed opinions from years of interviews and watching with my own eyes. But these coaches have been through the entire regime change from the developmental level with grade schoolers to college gymnasts competing in elite and NCAA at the same time. So here we are 2 Olympic cycles later to hear from 3 coaches who've lived through the change. So first up is Cleo Washington. She co-coached 2017 all-around World Champion Morgan Hurd. She coached Morgan starting at level 7 from 2009 to 2019 and mostly coached her on beam and floor. She coaches national team member Nola Matthews now, and in the past, she coached Tyler Turner and 2024 Olympic trials qualifier Kalia Lincoln. University of Florida head coach Owen Field is here speaking from the college and elite simultaneously perspective. He's coached team world champion Leanne Wong at the last World Championships, as well as Trinity Thomas as she continued elite during and after college. Sarah Korngold has coached Philippines Olympic qualifier Levi Yung Revivar in the past, and post-Tokyo, the only American on the all-around podium with Simone Biles at the last 2 World Championships, team world champion Shilese Jones. And I want to explain some vocab for everybody that's new before we start the interview. So an assignment can mean 2 different things. It can be that you've been named to a team, so you're going on an assignment for Team USA. It can also mean an assignment like homework. Like your assignment is go to beam and do 5 beam routines, this many leaps, this many vaults, whatever. So both of those things can be an assignment. And there's 2 different kinds of, there are many different kinds of USA Gymnastics camps that you have to earn your way to through scores or be invited to. So there's national team camp where the national team and invited gymnasts go and all work out together once a month. And then there's developmental camp where the pre-elites or the kids that really show promise starting in grade school are invited to a national camp to all work out together, and the coaches learn a lot, and the coaches here are going to talk about that experience. This interview was recorded before U.S. Championships concluded, so you're going to hear some health updates on Trinity Thomas, who could not finish the all-around due to an ankle injury, but finished with a heroic bar routine, and Shilese Jones, who successfully petitioned to the Olympic trials. If you're a Club Gym Nerd member, you have some special extra stories in your behind-the-scenes feed just for you from Sarah and Owen and Cleo. This interview has been planned since March, but it was recorded on June 1st. Enjoy. All right, so we were just talking about social media. Mm-hmm. And one of my questions is, why did you guys start now? Cleo's still like, nope, not for me. Why did you guys decide now to start having a say in the conversation?
Personally, I feel like I've always been a little bit vocal on social, like sporadically. I think like this past year during NCAA season, there were a few issues that popped up with some things, and that kind of inspired me a little more than in the past. And I think just having some success, or at least creating conversation around issues, it motivated me to continue it, because like I just felt like people were able to constructively talk through some things and like actually offer helpful suggestions and improvements to some things going on, instead of just bashing things. Like they just wanted to know what was going on. It's not like that they were trying to create issues, they just didn't know. And I think that led to a lot of the miscommunication.
Yeah, that was really diplomatic. I can see why Owen is an associate.
So diplomatic.
So diplomatic.
Always says the things I want to say in the more professional way. I started on social media because I would get so frustrated and upset and annoyed about the things you would read. Like, why don't people just do this? Why aren't they doing that? Why doesn't USAG da-da-da-da-da? And I was like, listen, people, it's really easy to sit on your couch and point fingers and do like, here's why. And so, like he said, if you explain your why and your what's, and like, yes, I understand this is a deduction, but we're doing it for these reasons, or yes, this might make sense, but whatever, then people understand a lot better. And as a coach, it's, and it's not like, not even me directly, but you see people, well, why does this coach let this person do this? And coaches put so much effort and time and energy and care and passion into it. No coach is sitting there like, oh, we're doing this because that's what's easy. Like, not one. And so I just kind of wanted to show a little bit the thought process that goes into every decision that gets made. Like, not one of us is just like, oh, yeah, that's fun, do it. Like, 0% is that how it works. So I wanted to show the other side.
And Cleo.
I like to stay behind the scenes. I definitely read a lot, which gets a little dicey at times, but no, I just like to watch. I'm a watcher. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm not really. I'm actually starting to post a little bit more these days. Sarah encourages me a lot to do that, but no, I'm more of a watcher. Behind the scenes, stealthy.
I almost made a fake TikTok Twitter account. And I was gonna go like on a rampage, and I was gonna like light it up, and then I was like, no, if you're not willing to say it, like if say it as you, then you don't believe that. So I didn't use it, but I almost did that.
We've had conversations about this.
Every championships are like, oh, Twitter said da-da-da, like, why don't they understand? But anyways, I just womaned up and put on my big girl pants and did it under my own name.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Mm-hmm.
I just think like at the root of it too, like social media is meant to be fun. Like if you can figure out a way to support each other and uplift each other, like Sarah and I just like having fun on Twitter or whatever. And I think like working together and being able to spread information is like a really good thing about it. Like it doesn't have to be bad. You can control it, I think. Mm-hmm.
There also is great ideas. There's great ideas on there.
I agree.
If you filter out the nonsense, like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Or, oh, that is something that like is a different perspective. That can be really helpful as well. Some of the, oh, maybe they should do a layout Jaeger in between the bars. Like, clearly you've never taught gymnastics your whole entire life. But, like, right? But some of it is good feedback and good, I don't know.
And I get my news, my gymnastics news from there. I follow a lot of different accounts. And so I think just to, like, be able to stay on top of, like, a lot of different things, a lot of, like, there's definitely a lot of people who have routine constructions. And, like, you think about it and you, like, calculate it and whatnot, and some things are just not worth it.
My favorite's when they insert a skill that the athlete's never done. If she could just do a Stalder full in-bar release, blah, 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 and you're like, have you seen her compete a Stalder in the last 5 years? There's a reason. Like, but, it's great for staying on top of things and seeing what other countries are doing and getting scores and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing what other countries do. Is that actually something you take into consideration?
I do, 100%.
Yes and no. To your point, like, just because other countries are doing it doesn't mean that it's the best for your athlete, for sure. You got to know what your athlete is capable of doing and all of that. But I like to see what other countries are doing just to kind of see where the trends are going. I like to see that, what scores really well, what doesn't. And I know international judging is a bit different than domestic judging, but I would say it's helpful.
My athlete currently has really clear goals for this summer. And so if I see that Italy's putting up a bunch of 14-8 bar routines, I need to see what those look like. Are those actually 14-8s, or is that some Italian home cooking? What are they putting together? Is that, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to stay really aware and on top of that so I can make sure that our start values or our execution align to help meet those goals. And so I utilize it that way. Just because Italy's all doing, in ego grip, whatever, we're not going to do that. But I can see, okay, that start view is legit, or, they have some kind of bonus system or something like that. So it's valuable.
I was wondering if you're talking about like fettuccine or like some spicy meat.
Owen with the dad jokes. Owen is here, everyone.
He has arrived.
So you don't do that? Or Leanne does it for you? Or Trinity does it for you?
I think Leanne's mom is very into watching things on Twitter, and
Leanne's mom told me what to do.
Leanne's mom,
like, yes.
She's awesome. She's very in the know of everything that's going on all over the place. I would say I think Leanne's process is very like focused on what her strengths are and skills that she's experimented with over the years, and I don't think that she pays so much attention to what other people are doing. It's like her knowing her gymnastics and how she can maximize her strengths.
Yeah. I had a funny thing with Leanne's mom because I was like talking to Leanne after a meet, and then I went outside and someone was like, yelling down to me like, "Did you see Leanne? Go tell her we're here." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, whatever you say, I will do it." And I was like, "I assume it's your mom, but someone's telling me."
Some strange lady.
And I feel like she's very commanding, and I should do what she says. Yeah. So, what do you tell your athletes about social media?
Stay off.
Get off. Get off of it.
I think I'm in a different place because like being involved in NCAA gymnastics and like the whole brand building and NIL now and all that and how you can capitalize on it with social, like it's different than just being in the elite world. Like it's necessity if you are interested in making the most of that opportunity. So I think it's learning how to filter out like the good and the bad, and establishing a way to not take things personally. If somebody says something mean, like it's not about you. A lot of times it's about them, And I think if you can develop that ability and some skills in that sense, I think that it sets you up better to be able to filter through things.
I think it's definitely different with college age athletes for sure. But like being a teenager is hard in and of itself. And Twitter can be brutal at times. Yes. So, I always say just stay off of it, especially like leading up to competitions or like during a big part of the season. And because it's just, it just takes honestly sometimes a little tiny thing to kind of like get in someone's head or like throw them off completely. And it's just not worth it to me. But that's also because I'm pretty social media averse as well. So.
Well, I mean, it gets me riled up and it's not even about me. Like, right? Like I get so, like even it'll be about like your athlete or your athlete and I get so fired up. But like, I think there's a way to utilize it, like Owen's talking about, to help build your brand and be involved that way, but you shouldn't be searching out your name or looking to see what people are saying. Like, definitely don't do that. I think that can be really negative. But even leading into the last classics, we did podium training, and obviously Twitter hated the bar routine. And then I got a text from someone else who was like, "Well, why did you change the bar routine? Blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Get off Twitter.
Yes.
Get off Twitter. Stop it." And then
then the best part was when she scored what she did, everybody loved it on
Well,
Twitter.
and then she
fully
scored
changed.
great.
Overnight. Yes.
The score went great, and I texted that person back, and I said, "Suck it, Twitter." Like, just trust the process, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why we do what we do, and that actually was the defining reason why I like went on my Twitter thing. I was like, all right, this all could have been avoided, and I wouldn't have had to deal with that, and I would have felt a lot less stress and anxiety. If just people had understood. So, but yeah, don't search your name.
Don't search your name.
There's definitely like some good, just like social media hygiene or whatever you want to call it, tips like that. Like where,
Hygiene.
like I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but
That's what they say in college.
but just some skills or things to learn, right? Where it's like like, yeah, a lot of times you search your name, you're probably going to come up across some things that you don't need to be reading because people assume things. But I think there's a lot of benefits to it if you are utilizing it in a healthy way.
I don't disagree.
And also, like, around competitions, I'd agree with you 100% too. Like, we talk, like, during regionals and NCAAs and stuff like that, like, the night before a meet, maybe just, like, airplane mode and call it a day, right? Because, like, there's just, like, you need to get on your normal sleep schedule and all that, and you don't need distractions. And but, like, I'm looking at it as just, like, the whole year in a big picture.
It's also just like, sometimes someone thinks they're being helpful and they'll send you something that's super mean and you have to be like, please do not send me things. I understand you're trying to be helpful. I'm very aware of nonsense.
I would say that most of the time people are trying to be helpful. It's not. It's not. It's so different when you're like in the thick of it and like all the things happening and the pressure and the stress and all of that. Yeah. A lot of times it's just not. So
it just like pushes the button. It's
does.
like the 13th reason. Like what? Like I know. You think we haven't talked about that?
Yeah.
Speaking of the stress of it all, I want to know from you guys, because you've all coached world champions in some capacity at some point. All of you have
I
coached
didn't
world
realize
champions.
That is kind of cool.
Good job, guys.
This is part of why I asked you guys here.
We never really think of it like that.
Yes, you have all coached world champions. And, like, I wanted to talk to you three because I feel like you're part of, like, the new guard who's of a certain age where you see things differently than even people who are a little older that get it. It's still a different view of, like, camp and what the culture is like. And you've also all experienced all the levels of camp through many regimes. And so I wanted to ask you about that experience and, like, what was it like when you went to your first camp? Like, who was in charge? Was it junior? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
I had no idea what it was going to be. First time I went to camp was in 2012.
September 2012.
It was Valerie in charge, and I was really young and clueless. And I mean, I'm quiet, but I was even quieter, and I was just trying to follow the rules and do the right thing, and I was just really, it was a steep learning curve, and no, it was very intimidating, extremely intimidating. But then I met really great people, Yay. Sarah being one of them, and it ended up being so great. Like, we learned so much and we met really great people. Gymnastics was great. And so it ended up being an amazing experience. But yeah, the beginning was definitely challenging, for sure.
September 2012 was my first camp as well, and it was with Valerie. And our athletes had been selected from like TOPS testing or something. Like, I didn't even know what developmental camp was. And we showed up and we had the staff meeting and they were like, oh, we're not going to do verification. This is going to be a working camp. And then some people that had been in the previous system were like, we always do verification, like da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, okay, we're going to do verification. And I was like, what's verification? What's that mean? So yeah, and so then we had to do verification, and on vault, I verified a timer. And Valerie said, you got problems. And I said, you picked me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's what we can do right now. So that was my first camp. And like Cleo said, it was like we had no idea what was expected and where we were going. But as a leader, Valerie was very excellent. He just gave us so much knowledge and education, and he invested in us so heavily and in our athletes. And I would be nowhere without that experience, like, for real. I'm forever grateful for that and the friendships and the relationships that I made through that. So
agreed.
Yeah.
My process was pretty different because I wasn't part of like developmental or anything like that at all. My first camp was with Trinity, her freshman year, when she decided to keep doing elite through college. And that would have been in Sarasota, 2018 fall, maybe.
When you compete and then you drive up to
Yeah,
Sarasota.
so back then, like, it was so long ago. But there weren't exceptions for NCAA athletes to have an excuse from camp during season. So we'd have a meet in Gainesville on Friday night and get done at 9 o'clock, and by the time she finished treatment and everything, it was 10, and we'd get in a car service. They'd have drive us down, but we wouldn't get down to Sarasota till 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and then have to be in the gym first thing in the morning Saturday. it was pretty wild. But I think similar to you guys, like I had no expectations of what it was going to be other than like the legendary stories of the past. But I think when things moved to Sarasota, like the tone was very different and the leadership was different and everything. So I've never had any bad experiences at camp. I think me going there with an NCAA athlete is probably a lot different than a club coach going with one of their athletes, just because for us it's like kind of a bonus or like a cherry on top of what our main focus is for most of the year.
And just to clarify for everybody, so verification is when you do a routine in front of judges and get a score, kind of, and you can do, there's sometimes different rules about what you can verify. Like you can do first half or second half or whatever, or what landing surfaces, but basically that's what it means. But I can see how you would be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean we have to show you stuff? Like, I thought we were coming to learn. I have a timer. Like, what is happening? And at that time, those kids were all little. Like, they were all level 8s and level 9s.
Like the most they did was like your Trinko bikes.
Yeah, there was no twisting belts. There was no single bar releases. And it was really cool to watch that whole generation. And most of them are seniors in college, like that first generation.
Yeah.
It was so cool to watch them develop and grow up and watch them go through college and like do whatever they were doing. I don't know. For me, that's really, really fun to watch. Like, right, we've seen Livy Dunn or Connor or Morgan or Shai, Suni, since they were 8 years old.
Yeah.
And just when they were little, no teeth, riff-raff. Like, it's true.
It is true.
It's true. So.
And that was your first camps were at the old Karolyi.
Yeah, we were at the ranch.
At the ranch, yeah.
Yes.
We had the party room.
We did have the party room.
We always got the same bedroom, and it had 3 beds and a full-size fridge. And it had so much space. There was so much room for activities.
And snacks. Lots of room for snacks in the fridge.
We had some snacks.
We
Not
usually,
a lot.
We usually went and got milkshakes from
We
the
did.
gas
We got
station.
milkshakes a lot.
Was that still in the days when you had to like drive to the grocery store to get food because there wasn't enough food or stuff that everyone would eat, I should say?
You stopped on the way in. On the way in, you stopped with your athlete at Kroger, and you got whatever snacks you wanted and water, and if you had a caffeine addiction, some of that.
But they changed the menu.
It got better.
Yeah, it did get a little bit better.
When Valeri took over,
Yeah.
I posted about this on Facebook one time, and I got raked through the coals, but it got better. I still wouldn't use the word great.
Agreed.
It was more edible.
It was more edible. It's way better now.
Yeah.
But it was better than before.
Yeah, it was better than before.
Yeah.
And then there started to be like cupcakes for birthdays and stuff like that. And so that
Little
was
mini ones.
Yeah. That was a change as well.
It was. Those were good times.
But yeah, it was great. And then when we first started going, there was no cell phone service at all. And so it was kind of, like, I don't want to say a vacation, but like no one could get you.
I never had cell phone service.
Oh, I had cell phone service at the end, but I pretended that I didn't. So that
No, I never did.
it was good.
That part was hard. And then some rooms got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them did.
Yeah, but we were at camp when it got closed down. We were in the middle of a camp, and we were on lunch break. And
then
the
we
press
saw it.
release went out.
Yeah, we saw it on
we
the
got
internet.
Wi-Fi that day. And so we were like...
then we went up to the
we were like,
staff
are we going to have to fly
cabin.
home? Yeah, so we went up to the staff cabin, and it was Kim Riley. And she was like, oh, I asked them not to put this out. Well, the small, tiny children were still there.
And then all the parents started calling.
Yeah, because we were like, do we have to fly home? Do we have to change our flights? Like, what are we going to do? And we finished out camp, and it was so weird. And like,
It was sad.
The vibe was...
it was...
Everyone was,
It was weird.
Sad, and then we left, and we never went back.
They actually started like cleaning up the gyms, like taking all the stuff down while we were still in
there.
camp.
Wow.
Yeah, they did it during developmental camp. And it was the first developmental camp selection for an assignment ever.
Oh, it was like
And
their first assignment.
Their first assignment ever, and the kids got selected and like made the team. And then
They got their first little jacket
their little USA
with
jackets,
USA on it.
And then it was womp womp. You don't get your assignment.
Yeah,
So, but they got the jackets.
they did get the jacket.
So that was fun, I guess.
And I just want to go back to what you said about like getting shit about Valeri when you said something positive about.
No, it was about the food. I
Oh,
got
about
shit
the food. Oh, okay.
People were unhappy to hear that I thought the food
It
quality
was better? Oh,
had
it got
improved.
better.
That
Our
was-
favorite meal was the
meatballs.
meatballs.
It was the best one, and the baked potato I could not eat. It was disgusting.
We went to Yummy Yummy a lot.
Yes, it's like
Never
like
even heard of
Mongolian
Mongolian something.
Oh.
Grill.
Yeah.
It was really good. They had a point. I just signed up for the points card when the branch closed down. Shoot, I didn't capitalize.
We didn't. We should have done it sooner.
Yeah. I've been there like 80 times.
And then at the very end, we did
Yeah.
I've had so many free meals. But I do want to clarify about Valeri, because one of the things I've always heard about him is, like, there are many complaints from athletes who've had him as a personal coach, but I've never heard anything negative about anyone that had him in the developmental program, that he was, like, very positive and great in that role, which is very different, I think.
One of the things I liked about it was that he held us to, like, such a high standard. He said, I've made a lot of mistakes in my past. Don't repeat my mistakes. And if he ever had, like, an issue or, like, wanted you to change something or whatever, he was very direct. You always knew, like, where, like, you stood or what you needed to do, but he always came to the coach. He never once, like, yelled or did anything mean or anything to the athletes. I really liked that about him. He always came to the adults. So
The kids idolized him.
They did.
They did. They really looked up to him, and he made them believe that he believed in them. And like Cleo said, if he had issue with what was happening, he came to us, which is correct. Like, we're in charge of what's happening, and he never made, like, I had an athlete in the beginning, and she would train really, really well, and then when she would compete, she would make some mistakes sometimes, and he never one time made her feel badly about it, and he always made her believe that he believed she could, and he never gave up on her, and so I respect that so much, and he just gave so much to us.
Yeah.
Like, so much knowledge, so much time, so much support, and he's still so kind.
Yeah.
Like, every time he sees me at the meet, he'll come up and he'll be like, "You're doing a great job. Like, I'm so proud of you. Like, keep it up." And I'm always like, "Oh, thank you, Valeri. Like, because of you, you helped me so much." But I don't know. I would like to think I would like to know what he thinks when he looks around and sees, like, little Cleo and I and, like, all the other riffraff coaches that were there in the beginning that didn't know what
Riffraff.
didn't know that
Literally.
wore backpacks and stuff, and, like, now we get to go to World Championships and stuff. So, like, that's got to feel kind of cool, I would hope.
So, in terms of, like, how things have changed, like, people are always asking me, like, how has it changed? And I'm like, I can only tell you what I've heard from athletes and coaches, and then what I've witnessed myself, which is a huge change, and how it's been. So, like, what are the positives? What do you wish would go back to the way it was? How do you view it now?
Can I share, like, just from my perspective, because I don't have any experience in the past, really. It's more just the present. I think the growing number of athletes that are interested in continuing on the elite track, like, while they get to college and even beyond that, I think that is a sign that things are better. I think in the past, like, whether it was they didn't have a desire to or they physically were not capable of continuing, I think that those were some major limiting factors, but it really feels like going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 or 10 years, the majority of seniors that are competing are at an NCAA program in some capacity. I think, like, you look at how many seniors are competing this weekend and how many have ties to college programs right now, it's already a growing number. And even if you look at, like, kids that are committed to universities, like whether they're a junior or senior, there's a lot of them. And I think just that separate avenue, and, like, the fact that now there are multiple ways to be able to reach the same goal, where in the past it was kind of like a one-way street. I think that it's created a better environment for a lot of people. At the beginning, when I first started coming with Trinity, there was a feeling of like, what is he doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why is he here with her? She's in college. She shouldn't be doing elite anymore.
Yeah,
People said that?
I don't think
you
anybody
felt
said that.
it.
It was a feeling, and, like, people weren't as warm and fuzzy as they are now.
we weren't there.
It was just a different time.
I was.
Oh.
But, and I think, like, that has changed because there are more NCAA athletes and older athletes in general that are participating now, and, like, they've even made some changes to the rules with them being excused from camps during season and things like that. And I just think it was like she was kind of blazing a trail a little bit, and it was unknown, and, like, people don't like change a lot of times, and I think there was just some growing pains with it, but, like, we've hung around and we're still there, and we love it.
And we love you.
Thank you.
I would say, in my experience, I've heard all the stories about Marta, and Morgan only went to one camp with Marta, and then she was kicked out. But
Wait, hold on. That's world champion, all-around world champion Morgan Hurd. So what's this now that happened?
I wasn't at this camp. It was like a November, and like Trinity went. They moved some of the little babies up to national team camp to see who would get to stay, and
that's like a post-Worlds thing, right? Like they still
Yes.
kind of do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like that November camp usually.
yes, because all the people from Worlds are excused from the November camp. But she went to that one camp, and I believe only Trinity was invited back to stay in national team camp. So. I don't remember. She didn't have a negative experience, but it wasn't the same as camp with Valeri. I will say that. But how is it different? It's the kids, I feel like, have more of a voice, for sure. I think actual camps are a bit more relaxed.
A bit more relaxed.
Very relaxed. I honestly would like to see them tighten up a little bit. But the times that we went through and everything, like we had to go this way. Yeah. So it makes sense. So, but I would say that I think the kids are generally a bit happier. I guess it depends a lot on the personal coaches for sure. But yeah, you can just tell like there's more joy, I feel like.
I also never did a camp under Marta. I've only done Valeri and Tom, and now Alicia, Chelsea, and Dan. I think even in the last few years, I've seen a shift to there's a little more autonomy in doing your own plan, right? You still have to meet the metrics and you still have to like show that you're improving and doing the work, but if you need to do it your own way, as long as you're meeting those metrics, it's being received better. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's good. I think that there's a little more openness about injuries possibly. Like it seems like people are hiding them less. You hear stories in the past that like you just didn't speak about it and you just kept working, and that's not so much the case anymore. I do think they need to tighten up camp just a little bit because it's not a good reflection of when you go on assignment. And so if you've never been on an assignment before, your athlete's never been on an assignment, it's a very rude awakening and a very big wake-up call that you would not have experienced at all at this point, versus old camp was a little bit more of that. Get your 6 beam routines done in a minute 30, like, because that's how it
was.
That's how it was. But it's not that anymore.
Okay, but not in a minute 30. Well, like, that would be...
We were told that if you wanted to make it at national team camp, you had to make your 6 routines in...
20 minutes. But,
no, it was
but you had to
less than
share
that.
A beam. It was like 12 minutes. Like
it was
mathematically
it was
impossible.
mathematically impossible. We did the math.
If
we're
you do 6 times a minute 30, you can't even do it.
Yeah.
Let alone breathing, or like, you know, the kid that has to go in between you on the beam.
Yes.
And so, but like the little kids would be like, ah!
Yes.
And they'd do 3 and we'd be like, say you did 6. Say you did 6. If she asks, you're done.
I mean, this is the thing though, because we saw at 2021 Worlds, like there was a lot of people who hadn't really ever had an assignment before, and coaches who were their first time, and we saw people go overtime, and that, like, I think it was DiCello didn't get a warm up at all on bars, and like so even though like it was preparing you for like the stress of the scenario where you have to get it done or nobody gets a warm up, like that makes sense.
I will say that like at the ranch, that was what it was good for that. It was a lot more like you have to get this amount done in this amount of time, and I think I remember my first assignment. The learning curve was steep. Like there were things that I didn't even know I had to know until we were like right there in it, and so I feel like we could do more with preparing the athletes and the coaches for that, for sure.
Seconded.
What about you, Owen? Because it's totally different going from NCAA. I mean, even
in
though,
some ways.
Didn't your mom or your dad own a gym? Like, didn't you grow up like in a gym?
Well, my mom didn't own, but she like ran a YMCA gym. Okay. So, not anywhere near this level of gym.
Okay, but it's still like in your DNA. Like you're in diapers running around the gym.
Oh yeah. She tells people that she took me to the gym before she took me home from the hospital when I was born. And I believe it.
Yeah.
But I think, in terms of like the timeliness of a competition, like Worlds was my first international assignment ever, and I think the group of coaches and athletes that we had there, they were a little bit more mature gymnasts, and I think they were all very well prepared for it, and so that made it a little more comfortable for me. But in a lot of ways, when I was there, I think we talked about it a few times, but it was similar to what we do every week in college, because we have those 30-second touches, and like we just do it so many more times throughout a year, that for me, it didn't feel that stressful or out of the norm. I also think we did a pretty good job in some of the trainings, like even auxiliary gym trainings and stuff, with like the transitions of only being able to have 2 coaches on the floor. So like we'd have people standing off on the side and have to like run back and forth to tag in and tag out. Because that was something that I had never experienced before. So that definitely made me feel more comfortable. And even like when we were in Ghent beforehand, like in that training gym there, we kind of simulated some of those things a little bit. And that helped a lot just for comfort. And I think in my opinion, like, I don't know if in like a normal working camp, if it would be super productive to simulate that stuff as much directly. But I think if you had a couple more, even if the selection was like a couple of days earlier or something, and you trained 1 or 2 more days, even if it was in Houston at the gym, I think you could kind of get your lineup order and everything and go through it a little bit more and feel more comfortable with it. Because a lot of it is like setting bars and like being able to have the tension at the right spot and knowing who's before you and who's after you and where they need mats and all that stuff, and just the kind of timeliness of it. It's not so much like the actual turns itself, because like you can do that at home in your gym if you want.
I think like beam warm up, I think coaches can be really bad about like, and now
Extra
I'm
time,
moving the board. And like,
Yes.
no, our clock is
Yeah.
running. You just wasted your 30-second touch. Like it's happening this weekend even, right?
Oh, I saw it happen this weekend, and I was like, why is no one stepping in?
And so I think because and there's pluses and minuses. The warm up is very relaxed, right? Like, okay, there's 10 minutes. When we're all done 10 minutes, we're gonna go. And if you need an extra turn, you can get it. But we need to practice. No, as soon as this kid gets up, you need to go. And you don't like the board there when you're on the beam, too bad, because it needs to be there because you have
Correct.
10 seconds before she's got to be on the beam, and that sort of stuff could be, I think.
I think it could be practiced.
Especially if
I
we're doing selections, then the warm up should be done that way. Potentially, and I'm sure there's logistical things, and I'm
Right.
sure they've thought about it, just like we think about all of our things, and there's reasons it's not being done. But that is something that I would maybe like to see changed.
I mean, to me, like if it's like beam warm up like that, for example, like if you have your 30 seconds, like cut everybody off at 25, because then you have that little bit extra time. But it's just, you have to have an awareness of it ahead of time, and then you can prepare that way at home,
Right.
so that when you go to something different, it's not out of the norm for you.
Right.
What kind of stuff, you said there were things you didn't even know you had to know when you got to your first assignment?
The warm up and like podium training, and how it, like podium training is like an actual meet, and like you salute and everything. And just, I remember, I forget what assignment, they were expected to do like 2 bar routines, everybody, a warm up turn and 2 bar routines in the 15 minutes or 12 minutes, something like that. If you're not like practicing that, that's a lot. And then I remember, I think this was one of the Germany trips. Someone fell, and then another person fell and wanted to chalk up. While you can't do that, you just have to go. But if you're at the gym and you're used to getting chalk really quick within the allotted 30 seconds that you have, but like you can't do that on podium, or it's just not possible. So just those little things. Another thing that was a little different was there were no mats on vaults. So like we at the time were doing like uphill like layouts and things like that. And so during the touch, there was 0 mats. And so that kind of threw her off a little bit. But honestly, like, and we teach, I'm sure all coaches teach, like, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to, like, go on the fly and things like that. But it was when there's a huge crowd in a very different country, and the lights and the, like, it was just a lot in the moment. But you just, as a coach, have to smile and be like, all right, here we go. Let's pull it together.
Everything's great.
We're gonna be okay. So
It was event final warm-ups for me, which is just a free-for-all. Like normally you go in and you warm up in your lineup and your time and da-da-da, but when it's event finals, there's like a 2-hour window. You can go whenever you want, go on the equipment whenever you want. You got to maybe fight some other countries to get in there.
Yes.
But like I could spend all 2 hours doing bar routines if I wanted, or I could do the last 5 minutes. So that was different because I was like, when am I supposed to go? Oh, we should be going.
No one's telling you.
Yeah, nobody tells you. So that was definitely a learning curve. And the World Cup was really different because you could compete beam at like 8 a.m. and then bars at like 9 p.m. that same day. So maybe you're going back to the hotel. But that is very different where it's like you're going to compete at 8:03 a.m. and you are going to compete at 8:03 a.m. So it's very specifically timed. But that was like very different than anything else I'd ever done. On that trip, I was with some really experienced coaches and they were super, super helpful. So that was great. But it was very different.
Speaking of unexpected things happening, you and Leanne have been part of a suddenly you're up scenario at the last Worlds, both when Joss got hurt, and I was just talking about this actually on our last show, that Leanne literally was up ready to vault with her warm-ups off before the coaches at the end of the runway had even knew, because everything happened so fast, and they were moving mats and they were setting things before they even knew Joss was down. Leanne was ready, and I was like, wow. And I was like, that's an NCAA athlete or someone who's been in this scenario before, that she was watching and waiting. But then it got a little more complicated because of the vault finals situation. Can you just talk about that, how that was to navigate on your side? Because it was confusing to everyone.
Yeah, I think I was not completely aware of the entire situation of what was going on totally. But throughout that entire trip, like every training, we talked about how, like, in college, we discuss with the team all the time that, like, everybody has to be ready at all times. Like, you never know when something's going to happen, like somebody's going to get hurt, or you have a flu bug go through your team or something like that. And everybody who has a routine needs to be ready at all times. Now, typically Leanne isn't one of those athletes who's a reserve, right? Like, she's normally in lineups pretty much all the time. But I think just that mentality and how we talk about it all the time, it prepared her very well for that situation. And we discussed it throughout the entire trip. Like, every single training, it was like, we're going to treat every single training exactly the same. And if something happens, then we're prepared and we're ready to step into that situation. Because, like, you never know what's going to happen. And I think there were some stories going around maybe with some of the other athletes from other countries that got put in last minute about how they weren't prepared for it, or they didn't know.
Saw it.
And with
Like
us, like, it was
with, like,
it was
2
just
seconds.
like, yeah, like for us, like we went back there with our group and we did everything exactly like we would if we were going to compete, because you never know. And I'd rather be prepared and an opportunity not present itself than for something to pop up and have an opportunity and not be ready to capitalize on it.
Absolutely.
I think USA does that as a rule.
Yeah.
The alternates always
Warm up last.
They
They're
always
always at the end.
They always go in, and if you got 2 per country out and you're not, like, for all around, you're still in the back gym warming up. You're ready to go. We just do that. We were reserved for beam final, full hair, makeup, leotard.
Yeah, everything.
Ready to go just in case.
Full hair and makeup. It just sounds so crazy,
It
but
was-
it is
it
like
was-
a whole show. It's a show.
It was a lot.
How do you, like, so when something happens, like when Leanne made it into the vault finals, but, like, there was all this confusion because it was like, there used to be a time when, like, if you were 2 per country out of the vault final and one of your other countrymen was out, you had a higher score than the other people on the reserve list, so you would go in. But then that rule seemed to, like, have changed, and then the FIG was doing it differently and interpreting it. So, like, how do you protect your athletes? And in like any situation like this, how do you protect your athletes from, like, worrying about something they don't have control over, or, like, seeing the discussion online about, like, someone's mad because now they're not going to go to Olympics because this and that happened, and what do you do?
I think in that situation in particular, like, it happened so fast that there was no, like, protecting or stopping from seeing anything, because it was like, it's in your face and, like, it's go time. I think after the fact, like, there was a lot of things being said, and I don't know if Leanne pays very much attention to social media, like the Twitter side of things. She's more of, like, an Instagram fan, but I know she does have a Twitter.
Using it to her advantage.
Yeah, she does. She capitalizes on it, right? But I think it is what it is, right? Like, I honestly still don't know exactly what happened with the scenario. I know Chelsea had to put in some kind of a petition or a proposal. I don't know what it was, and she had to talk to people and make a statement or something, and they worked out the final the way it was supposed to be, I guess, or as close to as possible. But she got an opportunity.
That never should have come down on an athlete. That
Yeah.
wasn't an athlete error. That was a bureaucratic error or whatever. And so I would hope that people wouldn't say negative things about an athlete in that situation. And if you did, shame on you, because
Twitter is
she
Twitter.
she just showed up and did her gymnastics and did her job and was prepared. And whether you like her gymnastics or don't like her gymnastics in any situation, like, that wasn't her fault. So that's what I would say if she said. I'd be like, that person's dumb. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's the system, and everybody has to work within the system. And also, sports aren't fair. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not fair. Like, if
Life's
you go
not
in
fair.
thinking everything's going to be fair, it's just not. Like,
I think it's interesting to me how even at the highest levels of sport, like some of these rules or like exceptions to things and stuff, like there's so much ambiguity with it. Like it seems to me like when you're talking about like world championships, like everything when it comes to procedures and processes for things like that should be very cut and dry. And it's just kind of eye-opening to me that even at the highest levels of sport, there's still confusion about things like that.
Yes. Until our robot overlords take over. And the AI.
It's coming.
Club Gym Nerd, you get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, an extra whole podcast every week, athlete dossiers for major competitions, code guides, options to commission your own segments. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at gymcastic.com at the Join the Club tab.
You have been in some interesting situations too. Like, like you're coaching Morgan, but only one coach can go. So you had to I could hear you yelling for Morgan, Morgie, when like at Worlds when she won.
Because she was like, I better hear your voice. And I was like, all right, here we go.
How frustrating is it though, is when you're like the second coach and can't be on the floor?
It is frustrating, but like I get it. I fully get it. I was so upset back in the day when I just wanted a t-shirt. Like as someone who like works really hard, you're like there with them every single day. I just wanted like the USA t-shirt or a book bag. I remember like the first time we got like the book bag, it was like, oh my gosh, like we made it. Like we did it. And so for the longest time, like I understand the decision, it makes sense. But I just really wanted a t-shirt really badly. Just to like show like some token for like all the hard work, what you've done, you know?
Yep.
Do you remember when you got your first apparel and I made you do a haul for me?
Yes.
I didn't have any apparel yet. I didn't have the kid that had reached that level, and I made her like literally go like item by item and like show me what she got.
Yes.
And when I got my first assignment, I almost didn't get the bag.
I remember.
There was one bag and two coaches that didn't have bags, and I was like I was like actually like heartbroken. And then they found a bag, and we both got a bag, and I like have a picture, and I'm like with this stupid backpack. I love that backpack.
It was such a big deal. For the first time, that backpack. It was a big deal.
It's still a big deal.
It is.
I never take it for granted.
Absolutely
I'm going to frame that backpack.
I would say like along those lines, it's kind of silly to me that at those major elite competitions, like at Worlds, you can only have two coaches on the floor at a time. Like I understand they say it's for space purposes and whatever, but like if you look at event finals and the number of athletes that are down there and them having personal coaches, like it's there's just as many as there would be when you have a team down with everybody. And I also understand that in the United States we do things differently than a lot of other places in the world do with how we send coaches to assignments like that. But I just think like there's room in the future for some growth in that, and I think it's in the best interest of the athletes for their coaches to be able to be around, and not even just for them individually, but for like the team energy as a whole. Like it's so much easier to add to the excitement of the competition. Like this is my NCAA coach speaking, right? But like to be a part of it instead of like being back in the hallway trying to peek around the corner and see what's going on in the meet. Like it's that piece it really, to me personally, took away from like the experience, I think, of the meet, and just being able to be there and support the team as best as I could during the competition.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of all the scenarios. Like, I was trying to think of all the things that have happened that people want to know about all these meets. Like, there's... you didn't go to Doha, right?
Mm-mm.
No. Probably smart. No.
I was at home.
You're
holding down the fort.
And then there's the, vault finals thing. And then I also wanted to ask if you guys have ever run into a scenario where, like I hear stories about this, but I'm just like, does this really happen? Where there's been some sort of like spying on what you're doing, or like some kind of attempted sabotage of the...
Sabotage.
I am so upset. I threw a whole tantrum on the podium.
What happened?
We were in bar finals. It was bar finals, and they warm up like the first half and then the second half, and I was in the first half, and the Chinese coach comes up with his fire hydrant, and he just like water power blasts the bars. They are stripped. It is I'm not exaggerating. Go find the video. It's raining. Okay, it's raining, and
It was like not a spray bottle. It was literally like
was
one of those like garden pump it up and just, like.
This was like a stripped. Like this was a brand new out of the box stripped factory bar. His athlete was in the second half. He wasn't even in that half, and I was like, Laurent, and the Chinese guy stood there and he went. And I picked up the spotting block. Yeah, I don't know. My mind did it. But he did this. Like,
He gave
was
you
like,
a look with
he
crossed
did. He
arms.
knew, like, and he was smirked at me, and I picked up the spotting block and threw it on the thing, and I got so mad. And so then Laurent and David Kikuchi, like Ellie Black's coach, are like, we're like mopping up the floor. It's raining. They're like having to rechalk all the bars because you only have so much time. And then so we were all frazzled. And I said to him, I said, "You're a bad man." And I got so mad. I did. And I looked at the judges and I oh. I broke my hand. I was so upset. Anyways, it all worked out fine. And his athlete won the gold and she did a great job. Good job, her. But he is not a nice man and he knows exactly what he did, and nothing happened about it. And then that night I was out for dinner with Shy and her family, and the judges came up and they said, "Ooh, you were mad." And I was like, I was mad. And I was gonna maybe write a complaint, but then I didn't. But clearly I haven't gotten over it.
You haven't
I'm
gotten over
so
it.
upset. Cheating is bad. Of all the people in this room, I am the biggest
Sarah
rule
is
follower.
a rule
If there's a rule,
Come on.
She is.
I am
Bigger than me?
Yes, I will.
Oh, yeah.
You broke the ball
I
today.
did not.
You did.
No.
I have it on my. What do you mean no?
You
I didn't
broke
break
the law.
No, there was cones dividing it.
You did a loop guru and you went the wrong way down the one-way street because you didn't want to go through the cones. He broke the law. Listen, I'm going to tell you the rule's stupid. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with the rule, but I'm going to follow it, and everybody else better follow the rules too.
Sarah will absolutely tell you if you're even if it's not a law, if it's just a little rule, she will tell. She doesn't even have to know you. She will go up to strangers to tell them that they need to be doing something else, or that's not what we do. And
Normally I'm trying to be helpful.
yes, I think you're always trying to be helpful.
100%.
Yes,
Maybe don't wear your backpack because we all got a lecture one time about wearing a backpack, so I just don't want the lecture, so take the backpack off.
Okay.
Right?
At the ranch, we had to learn how to spot. Everyone had to spot all the things all the time. It was required.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
It actually was awesome. It was amazing. That's where we got a lot of confidence in doing all of that. That's not the point. There was this guy, he was on the spotting block, spotting casts or circles or something, and he had a backpack on. And we got this lecture about how that is unprofessional. You may not wear a backpack. And it was serious. It was serious. It was so serious. And then I don't know if it was that same camp or another camp or something, but someone was wearing a backpack spotting, and Sarah goes up to them and she's like, you need to take your backpack off. You need to take your backpack off. I don't know if it was well received.
It was well intended.
It was.
I just didn't want another lecture.
But this is how you establish a culture. You establish rules, and then everyone enforces the culture. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was intense.
Yeah, but I am the biggest rule follower. So if you're going to cheat intentionally, I'm going to hold a grudge forever. And I hold a grudge. I don't really.
She said forever.
I don't really move on, ever. So you get one shot.
Ever. No, I'd say you give 2 shots.
You get 2 shots?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on severity.
It depends. It depends who you are.
Yes.
But yeah, and that coach, that was his shot, and he's done. I'm not happy.
I just can't imagine spotting with a backpack on. It must have been a light.
It was like a
it wasn't
drawstring.
Like
It was a
It was like a drawstring backpack.
It wasn't like my backpack.
There was
that weighs
many rules.
50 pounds.
There was another. Didn't you tell someone to stand up?
That was recent.
Yeah, that was.
But now they're sitting. Yeah, I told someone to stand up because in the Valeri days, it was very we don't sit, I don't sit, you don't sit. There's
You don't
no
sit,
sitting.
you don't talk, you don't.
Yeah, we don't expect our athletes to sit, so we don't sit. And so, I very much don't sit. You probably don't sit, you don't sit. Mm-hmm. And so we were at a developmental camp. Mm-hmm. It was recently in Texas, and this lady was just sitting the whole time. I don't think I ever saw her stand up. And I was like, hey, we're not really supposed to sit at these camps. It's not super respectful. And, at an international assignment, you're not sitting. And she said, well, who's going to pay for my medical bills when my back hurts when I stand up?
Is that what she said?
Yes.
She did not say that.
That is what she said.
Goodness.
And I said, not me.
You're not going to make it through an international
So I
assignment
was
if you can't stand up.
let her sit. It's one less.
I mean, on an international assignment, you don't really have time to sit. You're just
Well, yeah. I
You're
was
moving.
Who's paying her medical bills there while you're throwing the springboards around and the bars and re-chalking them? So nonsense. Oh, I'm so upset. Why do we have to talk about that?
This like the backpack thing and like the strings reminds me of when I see people that have like very stringy leotards with like the spaghetti strappy webbing on the back. I'm always like, oh my God, you're going to break your coach's fingers.
Yeah, you shouldn't be like, you should have fingers together.
But sometimes you have to grab a whole person and save them from
agree.
their head. So
Yeah.
That is true.
there's some.
But that's supposed to be rare.
yeah.
That's the exception.
Yeah.
You might get your finger broken anyways.
Yeah. What is the most proud of yourself you are from like catching someone, like an amazing save that you had, or at least you might have embarrassed yourself, but you didn't miss the spot?
In the very beginning of Nola doing packfuls, it was the very beginning, and she was very nervous. And I was like, come on, let's go. Like, you need to figure this out. And I don't know really what she did, but she ended up being upside down, and I just had to, like, bear hug her. Like, and I just, like, had, like, her legs were, like, right here, and I grabbed her, and she was just, like, dangling upside down. And she was like, wow, now I trust you. I was like, good test. Yes, it was a test. It was a test.
I don't have a proudest moment. I've had like a couple of good, like they're peeling on a front giant or something. You got them and they like sling out, but you got them real good. Mm-hmm. But a recent one was Shai was doing a double for the first time after like she'd been hurt or something, and it was on the hard floor. We were at camp, and she really went in and she just flew back. And I like caught her, but then I went flying, but like she was fine. And later she was like, "You really saved me," and I was like, "That's my job."
Yeah.
But, like,
You have to have many.
I'd say one that stands out to me a lot is one of my first years at Florida. Somebody was doing an overshoot on bars, and I was up on blocks, and it was pretty early in the fall, like coming back from summer, not doing a lot, and they completely missed both hands on the low bar, and I had like hips, and I basically kind of fell off the block, but held them in the air, and we were being supported by my arms on the low bar. And I felt him, do a little bit of the stretch.
His elbow just totally cracked, showing that
it might be left over from that. Who knows? But that one stands out to me a lot because it was like I was completely supporting them on one side, and my body weight was on the other. I wasn't standing on the block anymore, but it all ended up okay.
Wow.
my arms would snap.
Snap. It felt like they were going to in the moment, but it was okay. That one will always be.
It's a no for me.
I
would slow you down a little.
I would slow you down. I tell them I'll slow you down,
Yeah.
but I'm not. I'm very rarely like just holding you in midair.
Yeah.
The whole thing is like make sure someone doesn't get injured. Yeah. I mean, try. Like sometimes, even when you grab an arm, you're just like, I'm trying to make sure you don't land across the room and hit something.
Yes.
Like that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always so impressed with spotting because it terrifies me. This is like why I was just like, oh, we've gotten to the skills where I don't want to coach anymore. Goodbye. I don't want to do this.
I think like when I was first starting to learn back in the day, like I can't remember who it was, but somebody said something along those lines to me. It's like as a spotter, your goal or your purpose is not to perfectly place them on their feet on every skill. It's to make sure that they're safe. Mm-hmm. And I think like if you can have that mindset when you're going through the process of learning, like there's a lot of like issues that'll pop up, or like you're not going to spot somebody perfect every single time, but like your goal is to keep them safe and off of their head or whatever it might be. And if you can like figure out a way to work through that, then like it's all good.
What did you guys think when you saw Laurent standing in for Simone's Yurchenko double pike?
Like in terms of how scary would it be to be the spotter in that position?
Terrifying.
I watched the video yesterday, and he's like there, and you just know as a coach, you're like, don't need me, don't need me, don't get in the way, don't do it. You know what I mean? But like obviously Laurent's an excellent spotter, and Simone is so capable of that vault. But like I just know you're standing there peeing yourself a little, because I do it even on like a double layout. Yeah. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up.
And at the same time, like it's silly that that's a deduction. Sorry, I don't. Mm-hmm. I think like you can do it on bars, and like if you're doing a vault like that, it's way more risky to do a vault like that than 90% of bar routines are. And I think I have an issue with that a little
I
bit.
would even argue like dismounts off beam, especially like the little babies that are starting to do like double flipping and whatnot. It's stupid that you can't stand there.
In the USA, you can.
In the USA, you can.
But a lot can go wrong in a very short amount of time
Yes.
on that, and a coach could create a much safer situation.
I agree.
I have zero issues with Laurent standing there for Simone. She was so fully capable of that and like totally fine. My issue comes, and we've all seen it, when coaches stand in there for vaults that aren't quite ready. And I think that it would promote that with the vast majority of people. We see it all the time in warm-ups, on podiums, whatever, right? And so I go back to when the double front vault was worth so much, and people were doing that had no business doing it, because you were going to win with it regardless. So how many people are going to chuck 2.5s or whatever
if someone is standing
because
there.
their coach, if it looks bad, can scoop them up, right? And so...
But is that like a cultural question? Like that as a coach, it's your job to put your athlete, right?
It 100% is, but we've seen that not everyone is willing to make that choice.
Right.
And are more so willing to take the risk. And so just because none of us would do that, I do believe that vault in particular, because it's easy to do one skill and get a high, big score, it would promote that. So, like, I have no issues with standing in for beam dismounts, really. Although I do think we would see some more scary full-ins probably, but I think we see it in vault warm-ups every single day, where you're like, ooh, right? And then the coach is there to scoop them up, and you're like, ooh, I probably wouldn't do that, but, you know, I'm not at your gym, so that's my concern. And we see it, and the double front, and that's my concern. And that has nothing to do with Simone or Laurent, because that is leagues above anything. And I just don't know how you would set the parameters on that.
Right.
That, like, oh, if you can get a 9.5 execution, your coach can stand there. But if not, too bad.
I mean, I kind of like that rule. If you can get a 9.5 execution, because there's only one person in the world can get a 9.5 execution on vault.
Yeah, if you got the 9.5 execution, no deduction. And if you didn't, then there's the deduction because you weren't prepared for it or something. I don't know.
Speaking of this and spotting and standing in and all of that stuff, one of the things is, like, I feel like I see a lot of people really, like, speaking of social media and Twitter and how everything is, people really jumping to the conclusions of, oh, this is preventable and this gym is like this and why are the people always injured and stuff like that. And I think we see less of that now, but I feel like people don't really understand how hard it is to manage an athlete's body and injuries at this level. And can you guys just talk about that in your experience?
All of my athletes that I've ever coached have been pretty great communicators as to, like, what they are able to do that day, what they feel like they're ready to do. And so in that sense, I've been very lucky. So I can tailor assignments or goals to how they are feeling in that day.
But that also speaks to you and your relationship that you create with your athletes, because other athletes don't feel safe doing that and they hide it.
True.
Totally.
Perhaps.
Give yourself credit. My God.
That's a culture you've created and fostered, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, but even with the knowledge, I will say, it's still challenging to know how much to push, how much to pull back, how many numbers should we do, could we do, as we're, like, getting ready for meets, or as, like, it's, like, kind of like a downtime. It is a lot, and you wear a lot of different hats, but I think the communication part is the biggest thing. Like, you have to have a good relationship with your athletes in order to be able to manage that effectively.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, especially, like, at a time like right now and at the level that these athletes are at, because sometimes you need rest, and rest is, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're resting right now. How much can you rest 3 weeks before Olympic trials? You can't rest,
right?
I can do different skills. I can do less numbers. I can do whatever, but you're not going home on the couch and watching Jeopardy, right? You still need to be in the gym. You still need to be keeping your stamina up. You still need to...
Shelly never watches Jeopardy.
I was talking about me. I need some rest, okay, guys? I am tired. But it's like a relative term. What does rest mean? So the communication is so important, right? Today I can do this. I feel better. I'm whatever. Today I can only do my therapy and these skills that don't bother my this, that, or the next thing. And I would say, like, an athlete like Nola, for example, she did the spring season, right? She did international assignments. She did all those things. And now she's doing this. So, like, when was Nola going to rest? So once you have a neggy something at this level with so few big opportunities, you just have to learn to make it work and to figure it out. And I would be very shocked if we took a poll of every athlete in the building this weekend, like, who's feeling 100% healthy? And
zero.
It would be zero.
Zero.
Everybody has something, and so it's just how you're working with it.
And again, that's like high level sport in general, right? Like, if you talk to any professional athlete in any sport, they're dealing with something. Like, that's just part of it. It's like figuring out how to manage through and make the most of how you're feeling in that moment.
I was just thinking about this because one of the like Lyft drivers had sports radio on. They were like, so and so has a ankle. It'll be a game time. Da da da. And we know about it because it's just out there, and people have the security of like, you're on the team, but you're injured right now, so you might not play tonight. Do you feel like you can be totally honest about, or do the athletes feel like they can be totally honest with their injuries, or are they still worried? No.
I feel like my athlete can be totally honest with me, and then what we disseminate to others it depends. And I will say we had a great experience this week. I felt like it was handled really, really well, but my athlete's an adult. She makes her own decisions, so that's up to her. But I will say that the staff was very supportive of do what you need to do to feel healthy and be in good shape and make the best choice for you. And there was zero pressure any other way. And so that was awesome. And I think that puts a beat in the jar of like they are going in the right direction in terms of that. You're not going to be discluded because your shoulder hurts this week and you're going to be fine next week.
I think the more occurrences of that happening, the more trust is built, right? Like to me, like the communication piece is super, super important, but before that even, like you have to develop the relationship and the trust so that you feel comfortable communicating. Like you can talk all you want to talk, but like the meaning behind it and how valid everything is, it depends a lot on how deep your trust is with either that other coach or athlete or whoever it is.
Right. You gave a look when you're like, how do people really feel about...
Because I do think that athletes and coaches feel like they have to be good in every single moment. You're only...
What can you do for me now?
What can you do for me in this exact moment? I was going to say you're only as good as you are in this moment, and that actually sounds really terrible. But there is a little bit of that, and I think that's kind of natural. There's, especially now, there's so much depth. There's so many really amazing athletes. So I wouldn't be shocked if people had felt like they had to hide things. Like that wouldn't be shocking to me. But I will say that I agree that trust is built over time. And is it better now than it was 3 years ago? Absolutely. I hope the staff stays. And I say that because I think that to build more trust, they need to stay.
Yeah, you need consistency.
You need the consistency. And so if there's a different, I don't know, they're not national team coordinators. What are they?
High performance boobity boobs.
Yes. So if there's,
team,
the leadership team. If there's like new people come January or whatever, then we're going to have to start that process all over again.
Yeah.
And so, I would say it's still a challenge, in my opinion.
I have a hard time with the 3. I don't know who I'm going to for what necessarily. And so just by the nature of the assignments that I've been on, I'm much closer with Chelsea because she's been on every assignment I've been on. And so my inclination is to go to Chelsea because that's just who I'm most comfortable with and I have a relationship with. And for some things I should just go default to Alicia, right? But like I know Chelsea, I whatever. And so I've been working hard on that and doing better. And it's nothing with Alicia. It's just I've had that time with Chelsea to build the relationship and the trust and the whatever. So that makes it a little tricky, I think. And like some people have traveled with Dan and some people have traveled with Alicia. And so we all have different people that we view as the person we've built the relationship with, I think.
I've traveled with all 3.
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, it depends on what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Then I pick and choose who I go to.
I just started a group thread.
Honestly, I do that
now
too.
I have a group thread. I'm like, hey, everyone, what are our thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean, this is true of any, like, corporate structure either. Yeah. You pick who you want for what and what the scenario is, and In terms of what, like, an ideal scenario would be for you guys, like, when you travel and go to an assignment, what are the things that you would love to have that maybe aren't there now? Or you've had before, or are there things that, like, you need or they could be improved on?
Cleo said no group tickets.
I did say that.
We travel.
I hate the group tickets so much.
Group tickets have always been a problem.
It's awful.
I think, like, not saying that you need to book first class tickets for everybody, but if an athlete has the means or a coach has the means to be able, or their gym, to be able to provide an upgraded seat for an athlete, like, to have that ability is really helpful on especially those really long international trips.
Yeah. I have been very fortunate to be on very nice European assignments. They sound so lovely compared to some of the other assignments. So I don't have a lot to complain about. I think that, and I think this is true at the training center as well, better access to treatment and medical care. Like this weekend or this week at championships, we have better medical care. Our trainers are awesome. Okay. Like I'm not, but we have one trainer for the 30 kids that are at camp with no facilities. There's no ice tub. There's no hot tub. There's no nothing. Right. And so here there's basically one trainer for every athlete that's here. Whatever you need, you can get worked on. And if we're Team USA Women's Gymnastics, which is the most viewed sport in all of the Olympics, I feel like that resource, and Owen's talked about it so many times, at colleges, they have access to that. They have
full-time medical staff like at every single
need.
Practice. And I think that's another part of why some of these athletes that have decided to stick around are able to maintain and be able to be healthy, because we have unlimited access to that. I mean, everything. Like, we've got cryo on campus, we get needling, we get everything in our facilities, and you don't have to drive a half hour or 45 minutes to see a specialist. Like, everybody's right there.
Yeah. And so, like, I think our trainers are wonderful. I think they're creative. I think they work with the athletes. I have no complaints about the trainers, but the resources that they have to provide treatment for the athletes are definitely lacking. And at this level, I think that would be the biggest change that I would look for on assignment and within the camp system.
I think they're looking to upgrade that when they have an actual facility. Who knows when that'll happen?
2017, so
yeah.
like, you know.
But I know that is their goal.
That would be a huge benefit, in my opinion, just because in our world we rely so heavily on that, and we feel strongly that that is a big benefit to us. In terms of like on an international assignment, one thing that stood out to me was like Worlds this past year. Just like the transportation while you're there. I don't know what it's like normally, because I've only been on one assignment,
like
right?
that.
But it's like city buses, and it like pulls through like crowds of people, and with the team that like we had there, like they're very well known, like, you know, they're celebrities. And there were some times during the trip where it did feel a little unsafe, like people banging on the windows trying to stick things through for people to sign and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. And so like it got to a point where towards the end of the trip, like they started providing like a 15-passenger van to shuttle some of the athletes back and forth a little bit. But I think having something like that from the beginning would create a little bit safer or more friendly environment, just comfortable, maybe more comfortable environment from that standpoint. And that also maybe is me coming from college, where like we do a charter bus for our team when we're on the road, and you know, we charter flights everywhere and do all that stuff. So it's like, it's different.
Right. At the time we talked about that same thing, was like the bus schedule was the bus schedule. And so if our workout was at 10:30, but the bus came at 9:30, we would have to be at the gym an hour early. And that was just the only option. And so when you're already doing breakfast, bus, gym, bus, lunch, bus, gym, but right, those hours would be nice to have.
Yeah.
And so he had mentioned, you know, having like a private van or whatever, you know, we could streamline the schedule a little better. It would be a little safer.
Give you more time for recovery back at the hotel with what you have.
And some rest and all of that. So, yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah, it seems like when you're at something like the Olympics, you don't have control over that, but at Worlds or at World Cups and those kind of things, like I'm always shocked when you guys have to like get up or stay up till like 1 a.m. to get a bus to go to a hotel to get on it. I'm like, how is that a good recovery for athletes?
That one with the flights, I think, to me is like, I get that there's limited tickets and everything, but like the timing of when flights are, I think could be looked at a little bit closer. Yeah, we like literally had to run through the Chicago airport.
Sprinting. I had an asthma attack.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean,
sprinting.
Yeah.
My goal was to beat Kelly Hill.
And some of us were like, some of us were in the back of the plane, right? And like we had like what, 30 minutes or something from the time we landed till our next flight took off.
Like,
and we were in completely different.
Huge.
Yes. No, it was.
And I took off.
It was an
international flight.
Yes. It was far. And we were
with
moving.
Luggage.
And some people are like wearing slides, traveling and stuff like that, and trying to run in flip flops, and it was not ideal. Yeah. But we made it.
We did make it.
Bags made it. We were all good.
Oh, Shai's water bottle fell out at somewhere, and like some guy chased us down and gave it to her on the airplane because it had her name on it.
He could tell she was important.
Yeah.
You just see Shai
he was just
walking.
he was like, these people are struggling. They're gonna need hydration on this airplane.
Yeah. That was some serious.
That was wild. I didn't think we were gonna make it. And then our seats on the first plane, we were on the very, very end, and like I have a picture. We're like this. Some stranger beside Owen was sleeping on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Someone slept on you. Sweet of you. Owen.
It was.
I'm just that guy.
You are. They can tell. You're like. Speaking of which, why have you devoted your career to women?
the whole process of development and watching them grow from high schoolers when we first start interacting with them until being grown women when they graduate, or like Trin, like she's still hanging around, like she's not leaving, you know, like it's just like that growth process is really special, and seeing the development through it. And I don't know if maybe guys are the same way when they're at that age, but I feel like boys aren't as rewarding like from that aspect. I don't know. It's really cool to see. And I think women's sports in general is like exploding right now, and that's not why I want to be a part of it, but I think it's like a reflection of why it is so special to be a part of it. Like people are realizing how important women's sports is and how undersupported they've been historically, and I think it's just really cool to be a part of that and try to help grow it to what it deserves.
That's a better answer.
Good answer, Anne.
That was a great answer.
Good job, Owen.
Thank you. What was your answer?
There's more opportunities in women's gymnastics,
Well, that's true.
and thus more money.
To be honest, when I very first started, that was a part of it. Like I went to school at Nebraska, and I ideally wanted to walk onto the men's team, but I wasn't a good enough gymnast, and so I wanted to stay involved in gymnastics in some way, and so I started working as a student manager for the women's team, and like I washed Leos, and I transferred VHS tapes to DVD of old meat film, and like I moved mats in the gym, and like that's how I got started. Just
That was nice.
16 years later.
What are your tips on washing Leos?
Oh, that was a long time ago.
I don't remember anymore.
Hang to
You graduated
dry.
from that.
Yes.
Do you guys still have to do your own laundry on long trips?
Yes.
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 But like, what about the Leo? Like, no one washes the Leos for the athletes?
I wash Shilese Leos at Worlds. Annie will wash them if like really needs to. Annie will do it.
Annie will do all the things.
Annie is
Annie
incredible.
is
And Annie, if you're listening,
wonderful.
we are also appreciative of you. And I know you don't believe us, but we really, really mean it. And thanks for putting up with all our nonsense.
I love Annie. I really do.
But yeah, we had like
We had a laundromat down the street at Worlds that we went to. It
We had
wasn't like
fun.
you had to wash your stuff like in the sink in your hotel room.
yeah, we went to the laundromat, and Owen brought a little game,
Oh yeah.
and we like played a little game while we did the laundry. It was fun.
I'm big on
game.
like icebreaker games
Yeah.
and stuff. So it was like these wasn't
It
it the
was Would You
cards?
Rather.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like there's like Would You Rather, or like different things. Like we do stuff like that with the team all the time. So it's just like fun, like get to know you kind of things. Yeah, I think like team building like that is another thing that maybe could get better to help people be more supportive of each other. Like it's good, but I think like especially when you're on assignment and
Yeah.
like the high pressure moments and everything, like when you can like actually trust each other, it allows you to compete more freely, and that's something we work on a lot in college. And I think with some of the older athletes being a part of these world's teams the last couple of years, I think you've seen some carryover to that, and I think the competition has been elevated a little bit.
They did do before the last Worlds. They did that. What did they play?
I can't remember. Heads up.
Heads
or
up.
something.
They were
Yeah,
like playing
just
heads
some
up,
fun
and like
games
that was actually very hilarious to watch.
It's good to like just
Did they tie dye shirts?
Yes, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like enjoy yourself. Like this is hard. Like
Very.
everything that we're doing is hard, and so like any moment that you can bring a little extra smile or some joy or like just appreciation for what you're going through, and like recognizing the fact that like these athletes are the best in the world at what they do, and they deserve to enjoy that and have fun with it. And I think that there's a lot of value in that.
This is why I think, like, if there's some change in the trident, which is what I call the high performance team.
The Yes. Did you do a hand motion with that?
Yeah, the trident. I have a whole symbol for that.
I will never do that.
Pitchfork, but a trident's better than a pitchfork.
True.
So I was thinking, like, if there was, I would love to see a experienced college coach who's maybe not coaching anymore or has retired, or is someone who like wants to transition back into this role with that experience, who knows about the culture building and all the little things that can be done to help that along. Like, I just think what you're saying would be so helpful, because it is like, I feel like there should be like a certain amount of camaraderie built into the gymnastics part that's not in the gymnastics part. I know it's hard when everybody trains separately, but like everybody knows each other. They've been around each other. Some of them have known, like you said, since they were 8 years old. They've been working out, go to meets together, but some part of the team chemistry is still lost.
I think it's tough because like we have the team final or whatever, but then it's it's individual after that, right? And so I that's like a weird balance. I think.
But you don't think it's better?
I think it is better. I think it is better, and I think like, it's good, but I just, like, yes, we are a team, and yes, we support each other, and yes, whatever, but at the end of the day, then they're individuals also. So, and I don't think that necessarily bringing in old retired college coaches could necessarily be the best answer, because as we learn more, that was not the safest place either.
Yeah,
it's highly dependent on the environment, I think.
right.
I would say, like, to me, I think one area where you could address that a little bit is, like, during camps consistently. Like, it doesn't have to just be team building with a team that's going on an assignment. Like, it can be, like, your entire national team. Like, you're trying to build a little bit better environment, a better relationship with everyone. And to me, like, I think the athletes themselves, they do a pretty good job of that. And I think, like, just organically by them on their own. But I think, like, even among the coaches, I think it could be more valuable, because, like, if the athletes are seeing the coaches get along and interact with each other in a positive, constructive way, I think that they're more likely to build on that.
I think that when Alicia and Chelsea first started, they tried to do random things every now and then like that. And they got so much pushback.
Yep.
I think that would work
If the coaches buy into it.
in
right?
an ideal world, but, like, there's no way
Yeah.
that all of the coaches are going to buy into that. Like, not even close. And so I will agree with you. I think the girls do it kind of organically, for sure. And I think they all cheer for each other and things like that. And then I think, like, for the coaches that we grew up with, like, we are all really close.
Yeah.
You're honorary.
Okay. No, I know what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so,
I
like,
see it.
You fit in.
Yeah.
we all really vibe really, really well. We support each other and things like that.
I think part of that's because, like, you grew up together in the developmental system where, like, you were learning together and you were going through those struggles together. It's like that, like, just, I don't know, it's like you were a team together.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I also remember when they added some, like, strength and conditioning rotation, and people threw a fit. Like, they didn't want, either it took away from something that they really wanted to do, or they felt like they were, like, imposing or whatever they were thinking. But I just think that if they added, like, a team building, like, when would you add it? Or like logistically, like, not during the break, like, between the practices, because then
The kids need to rest.
They need to rest.
They do need to rest.
I agree. And then, like, I just don't see where, and they could add it to the second practice.
So you know how World Championships is going to one-a-day workouts?
Yeah.
What if camp went to one-a-day workouts?
Yeah, right.
I think here's the thing. To me, here's the thing. From a philosophical standpoint, you have to decide what you're placing value on. Like, is the purpose of camp just to get in numbers in front of the national staff? Or are you trying to look at the bigger picture and create this environment that we all envision and we all want? And you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of training time in some scenarios to be able to build these other areas that in the long term are going to make your gymnastics better.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I get that.
Does everybody want that vision?
Nope. That's what I'm saying.
No.
It's
Right? Like, I think the reason there was so much pushback is because there still is very much like, I do it my way, I do it my way, I do it my way, versus our way is, like, way more collaborative. Hey, Cleo, watch this video. What am I missing? Why can't I figure this out?
Right.
Owen, what do you say when kids are struggling with this? Right? I think that there are coaches there that would never do that, and thus they don't necessarily want to do that other stuff.
So in an ideal world, in both of your minds, which of those do you feel like will lead to more long-term success? Like, if like Jessica said, if we are, like, the next guard, the future, whatever, is that something we're starting to establish now for the betterment of the sport for the next 50 years?
Obviously right? that, and that is why our crew is so tight, is because we were collaborative from the beginning.
Right.
We went to the trenches together.
We went
Exactly.
through the storm.
And so, like, we are all better because of it. Like, our core group of friends rely on each other so heavily. And so, obviously, I think that is the most successful way, but I would argue that those other coaches have had a ton of success as well, and so they may just disagree. And so, I don't know, that's Team USA has to decide what they want. And I'll just keep having my core group of friends.
I mean, I think just hang out together and do our own thing outside of camps.
Yeah. Love it.
I mean, this is the thing that I've always heard as the guard has changed, and they had so many plans for, like, we're going to do, like, a wellness thing. We're going to have these classes on all these things, like, you can get at the Olympic Training Center. Like, if you want to make your own nutrition appointments, like, all the resources you'd have there.
In Sarasota, they did that, like, during, like, meals and stuff. They'd have somebody from the USOPC that would come in and do, like, talks on
they do that now.
sleep wellness and.
But I mean, like, regularly.
They do, like, dietitian.
Like, every
right?
We've had the
The
nutritionist.
dietitian, the nutritionist. Then they have the mental.
Oh, Karen?
She does like visualization and things like that.
And the strength guy one
Then
time.
the strength, Tilly came once. But again, I just don't think...
It's like one per camp.
It's right. It's not...
It's not built into the schedule consistently.
Right.
Yeah, but they get a lot of pushback, so...
They get a lot of pushback.
And that's totally what I've heard is like every time they really want to change it. They really want to establish the culture. And there is that constant no, because we're doing it this way and you can't make our gymnasts do more. And the idea that like you can't take 1 week to do less gymnastics, and which I think is the part of changing the culture. And I feel like part of it is like if you really want it to change, then you have to sometimes force it down people's throat who don't want it for the 1 week, a month that they're there for the betterment of the gymnasts who will be the coaches in the future. Not their coaches now. They will be the next generation of coaches. They're gymnasts now. And so it takes that kind of like, I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm doing it for a reason, and this is what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, then fire me and get another coach, whatever. But this is what needs to be done. Obviously, that's what I would do.
And I respond really well to someone who's just like, this is how it is.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing, and this is the reason why. And I'm like, okay, like, let's go. I personally don't like the like wishy-washiness or like maybe we're going to do this or maybe we're going to do that. Like I'd rather be super honest with me, really blunt, might sting a little bit for initially, but no, I respond to that. I like that better.
I also would like people to be very direct and clear, but I want the reason to make sense.
Yeah.
Like if I ask why are we doing this, well, this is how it's always been done.
That's not a reason.
That's not a reason. That's not an answer. And so if it's the rule, I'm going to follow it, but I'm going to tell you that's dumb. I'm going to be like, that's stupid, and then I'll do it.
Like, let's figure out how we can change the rules to make it make sense.
So actually, I'm getting better at just not doing it. If it's actually like, if it's like dangerous, I'm not going to do it. But like, I'm not going to do that many bar routines.
I'm not a rule follower.
I know Cleo's the least rule follower, which would be shocking to most people.
It is shocking.
But she is in fact the least likely to follow the rules.
But like, did anyone tell you when you guys first started that this is the secret about camp? No one did the assignments.
Well,
no one told me that.
You
but,
pretended.
Like, I did.
When you're
did.
on assignment, they keep track.
Oh yeah, on assignment you do.
Well, yeah, but like back in the day.
Yeah.
But even at the Olympics, it would be like, oh, pretend you're doing 10.
Tatiana was keeping track, guys. She always been keeping track. They keep track.
On assignment, they do. Yeah.
Including sticks.
But then honestly, on assignment, you got to do what you got to do. Like, you got to, it's time.
You got to get through.
Yeah, I mean, you should be able to do as many routines as you need to.
But also, it's only, the rotations are 15 minutes.
They're super fast.
How much can you really do? You're not going to do your 6 or whatever. Right. It's like 2.
I think it's more like here when you're on assignment, like the fact that you have to get warmed up and do the turns, and it's like the
in
total volume.
Time.
Yeah, and it's like the concentration and the quality of it has to be locked in.
And you can never break it back down to fix it. Like
it's not like a volume problem. It's just like that repetitiveness of like day after day after day when you're on a trip for like, how long were we in Belgium for?
20
something days.
I guess like Simone posts every day. Yeah. Like I remember that one year where she just posts days till LA, and then she wanted like a giant Cinnabon. Remember that year? Was that like Glasgow? Yeah, days till. That was when they were finally let out of the hotel for one day. And they got to walk around. That
2015?
2015. That was the Marta days.
That was.
Last of the Marta days, yeah.
We get to walk now.
Yeah, we adventured a bit.
Yeah.
But also I think your assignments are way less volume than they used to be.
I don't know.
I think they are less.
I think.
You mean like in frequency? Or like what you're doing while you're there?
In numbers. Although when it got to the Olympics, like at Rio, I think Marta's numbers were like you had to do like 2 routines per event. Like it wasn't something insane. At that point, it wasn't like how she originally coached. Like she had, but she also trusted those athletes to hit. You know.
Yeah.
Truth.
I can't remember the question.
I don't either.
We were just talking about how to fix shit.
It's hard. It's just hard. It's and everybody has good intent. Like they have good intentions. I know it.
And they want to do what's best for their athlete.
Yeah.
But it's hard. There's a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like there are a lot of different paths that you can follow to get to the same goal.
There's
like it's not everybody's
more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah. Not everybody has to follow the same path. Like different athletes need different things. Like I think even on a day-to-day basis in the gym, you see that as a coach. Like you can have an ideal framework for what you want your workout to be, but based on how somebody's feeling on a day, you might have to make adjustments to that, and that's okay.
True that.
Fully.
Like, is it the same like in college workouts? Like the trainer meets with the coach, you say who can do what today, who can't do what the adjustment for their injury or what they're rehabbing or whatever is, and then that's how the workout starts. And I always thought like, oh, that must be how national team camp goes too.
No, that's like 100. Like we have full-time, for us, we have full-time medical at every practice, and we get updates constantly, and like we are not in control of limitations like that. Like if an athletic trainer or our team doctor says like they're not allowed to tumble today or they're not allowed to do this today, like it is no negotiation. It's like if coaches choose to go against it, that's when they get fired in NCAA a lot of times. But I think the relationship with that staff and everything, and having the best interests of the athlete in heart, that leads to long term a healthier athlete, because they're able to limit the numbers when you need to, instead of waiting until it's like dire.
Yeah. And so at camp, it doesn't start with like who can do what today, checking in with each coach and being like, what are the limitations or the trainers?
Well, camp start with
I think it's
start
different.
with a meeting. It always starts with a meeting, a coach's meeting, and then they say if you have any, I don't know, do they still say this?
If you have any injuries, let us know.
If you have any injuries.
And I'm like, I'm not saying that in front of these 52 people.
That only happened once. That we had to say it in front of everybody.
Someone told me today that that's how it should be. And I was like, interesting. It's nobody's business what's wrong with my athlete except me, my athlete, and whoever in this decision needs to know. It's not Cleo's business. Cleo probably knows anyways, but it's not Cleo's business.
No.
It's not Owen's business. Like, it's not my medical information to be giving out.
Yeah.
Right?
I've only had one camp like that. And they said that they used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Where you like just go around the room. Is your kid good? Is your kid good?
Yeah.
Is it? And I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, like,
We're good.
why?
To me, a big difference with that is like in our world, we have that consistent medical presence with us every day, and they're the ones reporting to us. Where like when you go to national team camp, those medical professionals are not seeing those athletes on a day-to-day basis. When they're at camp, they are, but that's for 4 days a month.
I know the team doctor is in touch with our local doctor, and they communicate all the time, and so the team doctors know what's going on, and then they always ask us, can I share this with the leadership team? Can da-da-da-da? And then it's up to us whether we do or don't. We are pretty open about it, because I'm pretty much like, we're not doing that. Like, we'll be at this camp, but you'll see us do no gymnastics, right? Or we're not going to be at this camp because that doesn't make good sense. And if we weren't being open and communicative with that, then that's going to look some sort of way. But that's still between me and the high performance leadership team and my athlete. It's not Miss Coach Susie's business why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the argument that I got from someone yesterday was, well, like, but then they're going to judge it and feel whatever. I judge me. I don't care.
They're gonna judge it regardless.
I don't care. Like they don't. If they don't see the MRI themselves, they're not going to believe it anyways. So whatever. So that was kind of my thoughts on that.
I think that I just made a little connection in my head too. Like earlier when we were discussing the more individual aspect of camp now, where like there's more autonomy with the coaches and being allowed to give their assignments to their athletes rather than it being directed from the national staff. I think that maybe plays into the need for like a medical update daily too, because like the coach is the one that's deciding the majority of what the athlete's doing. They're not being directed from the national staff as directly as in the past.
Right.
And so I don't know if like a daily update from that sense is as necessary as maybe it would have been helpful in the past. And the coach can share with the national staff if they want, right? But from like a medical standpoint, I don't know if it's as essential.
This is where I think it's one of those things where, like, I think we all see what should work and what we shouldn't work and where the problems are. And what we actually need is, like, someone who's, like, gone to all the federation programs all over the world, studied what works, what didn't, where places had, like, incredible resistance and how they overcame resistance, and then came to a consensus that worked. And I feel like it's hard because everyone is, like, focused on their bubble of this.
Yes.
And because you have to. You barely have time for anything. You guys work so much, so we need that someone else to come in and be like,
I feel
here's
like
how to do this.
Our federation is so different from most other federations
is.
that most of them have a centralized training location, and this is the head coaching staff, and these are the rules, and this is what we do, and in the US that's not how it is, right? We all have our own private gyms that we run our own ways, and so it would be so much harder to just implement something like that I'm not saying impossible, but even like going to see what do they do in France, what do they do in here, like Canada's probably the most similar, right? But I don't know, it's just so different than the way every other federation does it. Yeah. We have team doctors, but like those aren't our primary doctors because I'm in Seattle 3,000 miles away, right? Yeah, it's different. And like this goes back to Twitter. they're like, why do they let those athletes compete that? Like, that's a deduction. Those athletes pay us. They pay us, right? And if at some point I can tell you not to do that, and at some point if you're going to be stubborn, you can either take your money and walk the 1 mile down the street and go to that gym that is 1 mile down the street, or I'm going to pick my battles, and that's not the battle I'm picking today. I guarantee those athletes have been told about it, have been educated on it. They pay us. This is not a government-funded thing. They're not being supported by anything. They pay us. So I am your gymnastics house cleaner, and I'm going to fold your sheets and whatever, right? And so you got to hope. It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to do that back handspring today? Okay, that's okay. And that's not how it works in the other top federations in the country. And so, like, that's a whole different, So, yeah, USA does it very different. It makes those changes tougher and the cultural changes tougher because now they have to try to change the culture within, how many national team members are there? Let's say 32. Okay, I'll say there's 25 gyms because WCC has 8, right? So like, they can change the culture in 25 gyms and change the thought process in 25 gyms and the way things work in 25 gyms versus this is the gym and this is how we do it. Get on board or get off national team. So.
And at the end of the day, it's not even just those 25 gyms. It's like every gym in the country.
Correct.
Because like you never know where somebody's going to pop up from, right?
Right.
Yeah. Risa Sponda, Montana. That's like 3 gyms. Yeah.
Shout out to Roots. You guys crushed it.
Yeah. Because it is so historic and such a huge deal, and you guys are part of history competing here and having competed on teams with Simone Biles and now with 2, also with 3. You competed at meets with 3 Olympic champions, all-around champions in the same meet. I mean, first, what is it like to just compete alongside Simone? And what does it mean to you and your athletes? And, like, historically, like, can you even put it into context what it's like?
I'll just flat out say, like, to me, you watch Simone do gymnastics on TV, and it looks very impressive. You watch it in person in an arena sitting up in the stands, and it looks even better. You're on the floor.
It's different.
Life-changing.
Holy cow. Like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking, look at that. It's good. it's like just the athleticism is, it's unreal, and to have been on the floor with her for some of like those major accomplishments, like we were in a group with her at championships when she did the triple double for the first time in the double off beam, and like being from me away from that happening was like breathtaking. It's incredible to watch.
I think like he said, she's an incredible athlete. I think it's from the outside looking in, you can see she's very gifted. She's very physically gifted, right? But having gone on assignment with her, been at camps with her, like she works. She works her booty off, and you've got to respect like someone that's that good and better than everybody else and still continues to work and push her limits and get better and invent new skills and like respect. Like that's incredible. And so I think in terms of the other 2 Olympic champions, like same thing. You guys have already achieved something so rare, and to put yourself back out there and put yourself through that again and try to push yourself further, and like those are special people, and that is a rare breed, and I think it's iron sharpens iron, and so to be around people like that and to watch it and to witness it, and it makes me want to do better, right? And so hopefully it helps push all the athletes around them as well.
I agree because they are all so talented. I appreciate that they are also hard workers and they are doing the work and doing the numbers and things like that, because then you can tell someone else like, oh, look, they're doing it too. Like, because from the top it trickles down, and so to see that, it's helpful for everybody.
To me, one other thing too that stands out a lot, just talking about all 3, is like the growth and like seeing how supportive they are of each other and the other athletes too. Like I think that's a really special thing about gymnastics, is like it's a sisterhood, and like they all know what they've all been through and they support each other, and like that's really cool to see that growth over time.
It was cool. I was on the floor of the meet last night, and we weren't competing, so I got to just enjoy it, and that was great, actually. But to watch those interactions and, like, walk all the way around the arena to give someone a hug, or, you know, someone fell, go make sure they're okay, and, like, they really do look out for each other, and so it's good to see it.
And this will probably air after we've a week after championship, so we'll have some news. But can you guys give us an update on Trinity as much as you're able, or Trinity wants you to, or Shy wants you to, on how things are looking?
She went in this morning and did a bunch of extra treatment, and she got up on the bars in training this afternoon and did some basics a little bit. We're just going to kind of play it by ear and minute to minute almost, and do as much treatment as possible the rest of the day today and tomorrow morning, and see how she feels.
If this had been Olympic trials, we would have competed this weekend. Her shoulder hurts, but it's structurally sound, and she's medically, they said you could go. We just felt like the ramifications of pushing through that much inflammation this weekend might have led to longer term consequences that we didn't want to deal with all summer. And so she was mad, but we decided not to do it, and that was the right decision. And so we are excited to train and feel better for trials and hopefully Paris.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that people look at this and why can't you just do your routines now? It's because you don't want to peak now and you want to last all the way through those. How many routines? 47 routines you have to do, especially if somebody like Shy makes every single event final, like Simone. Yeah. It's so many routines, plus the camp beforehand and training and all of that stuff. Saving.
Gotta last. And they do hard gymnastics. That's hard. So, no, it hurts, and so I don't want you worrying about that. And then maybe you crunch an ankle because you didn't throw your arm as hard as you should have, or whatever. It's just the consequences of pushing through it for this competition didn't outweigh anything for me. So,
yeah. Are there any final words that you want people to know, or gymnastics fans to know, besides be nicer on Twitter? And we already thought of that.
Or just ask.
Just ask.
Don't just assume or preach or whatever. Ask. Owen will answer. I'll answer.
I won't, but I'll tell Sarah to
answer. She'll tell me to answer. I also have a friend that has a sneaky Twitter, and he answers sometimes too. But yeah, I promise you that every coach out on that floor has considered all of the options, and the options that have been chosen are for a very specific reason. Mm-hmm. And just because a kid physically should maybe be able to do something doesn't mean that they can.
Right.
And there's fears and injuries and pain and
other outside factors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
there are actual lives.
They live lives. Yeah.
Yes.
There are other things.
Something's going on at home. Your boyfriend or girlfriend just broke up with you. Whatever. Things happen.
Yeah.
Bad day at school. I get that one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Finals.
Yes,
we get that a lot.
Yeah. That's a big part of college.
Finals week.
Just the adjustment of being away from home and doing things on your own and all that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think my little piece of advice or whatever, or thing to leave with is obviously your listeners are gymnastics fans, and they are passionate about the sport, and they see the potential and how amazing it is. But I would challenge every single one of them to invite some friends who are not gym fans to watch a meet, even if it's on TV or whatever, or come in person, because the sport is so incredible and it's growing, and whether it's college or elite or even a level 10 state meet or something like that, they're incredible athletes and they're pushing their bodies to the limits, and it's really cool to watch. And I think just bring some people in and help grow it.
And we have fantasy gymnastics now.
Yeah, I can't participate.
I saw that.
You can't. Yes, you guys can't. But I can't believe the number.
I can't participate.
Oh, you can.
Just NCAA.
I have NCAA rules that I can't do. Yeah.
Did you make some no coaches rule?
No, you guys can all.
I would win.
Everyone can.
Sarah is so competitive.
So competitive.
It's outrageous, and she's a sore loser.
She's the worst
I'm the worst. It's okay.
Do you hold a grudge against yourself forever when you don't win?
No.
No, just other people.
No, I just like
Top Golf.
Top Golf. She's the worst. Top Golf. So we were playing, and
I was losing so bad.
She was losing, and then there was this one moment she had just taken a turn and she was winning for just a half second. She's like, "So should we go?
Are we ready to leave?
Are we all ready to go? Are we done? We're done, right?
We didn't leave,
and we're like, "No, Sarah, sit down."
I'm a bad loser.
I will say that you guys are all very good coaches, because you have taught me how to use those speedy
scooters,
zippy scooters,
yes.
And I didn't die, and I just listened to you, and I did exactly what you said, and I could do it immediately, because I was very I'm going to flip over on this thing.
It's not that hard.
And you two have taught me how to top golf, even though I was terrified of falling off the edge onto the net, rolling off the net, and then dying. And so I overcame my fears, and I hit the ball. So
Great.
I can testify to your coaching abilities. Not the gymnastics, the world champions you've coached, but me personally. Yeah.
That counts.
There's a lot of carryover.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Go team.
Thank you so much to Cleo, Sarah, and Owen for their candor and their time. They have such crazy full schedules, and I appreciate them taking so much time to share their perspectives with all of you. If you have feedback or questions for Behind the Scenes at noon Pacific on Friday, you can put it in the forum or email us at gymcastic@gmail.com. Don't forget to get your virtual live show tickets for Olympic trials or your merch to show your gymnastics pride in Minneapolis or for later in the year. And until Friday for Behind the Scenes at noon Pacific, remember to take off on gay, split on rights. Thanks for listening.